There are still a lot of tomatoes left. So today I'm gonna take out the ripe ones and get some stewed tomatoes going. Oh, bucket 2 made a dent. Just down to the mostly the ones that were pretty green to begin with, so a few more that'll definitely ripen, and we'll see what happens with these other guys. So I washed all the tomatoes that I picked up from my stash, and I've gone through and picked out a few that I thought could still use a few more days, and so I'll just set those out up in the kitchen and I'll use them up through the week as I need them. I've cut out some sugar, salt, garlic, and some other spices there. Pepper, basil, oregano. So I'll add those in later. So for now I've got all the tomatoes washed. I'm going to be cutting the stem end off, and you can see there's some blemishes on some, so I'll cut off any blemishes. And then I have a pot going on the stove there. It's going to be boiling here right away. A bowl of ice water, colander, and a roasting pan. So I'll cut the stems off. I'll dunk them in the boiling water for 30 seconds, a minute, something like that, till the skins start to loosen. Drop them in the ice water to cool them down and loosen the stems further, the skins. Then I'll pop the skins off and just toss them in the colander to be composted. And the tomatoes will go under the roaster, and I am going to do that until I've gotten through this stack of tomatoes, and then I'll add my seasonings. And I'll put the roaster in the oven, and it'll just go on real low, just kind of at a simmer for a few hours, and that'll get the tomatoes stewed. And then I have some freezer containers there that I'll ladle them into, and they'll go in the freezer. So when the skin starts loosening, it's time to go into the ice water. I don't know how well you can see, the skin is just starting to pull back there. You can just see it's just a little bit looser. That's all you need. Some people cut an X in the tomato before they put it in the water, just through the skins, to make it easier for peeling. I find just popping the stem end off or any blemishes is easy enough for me, so that's what I do. So I'm just going to keep going through. Just pop the skins off, throw them in the roaster. And I'll keep working on this process until I've got through this whole lot of tomatoes. so I've got my tomatoes all skinned and in the roaster, and I'm just adding up a few cloves of garlic, and I'm going to add some cracked black pepper. And a little bit of salt to start. I'll add the other seasonings in as it has cooked a little bit. I'll give it a little taste and see what it needs. Quite often I'll add a little bit of sugar. For this big of a pot, maybe half a cup, maybe a cup. It depends on the sweetness of your tomatoes. And then I can add in, like I said, some oregano or some basil. You could add in onion or green pepper, celery. I have a lot of those things in my freezer from the garden that I've just frozen, and I prefer to be able to add a lot of the extra ingredients in with the dish that I'm making, instead of adding it and having all the stewed tomatoes the exact same flavor. So that way I can adjust the flavor a little bit for each individual dish that I make with these later on. So I'm going to pop these in the oven. When you roast them in the oven like that, it'll just give them it'll bring out the sugars in the tomatoes and just give them a really nice flavor. It's a little bit different than if you just cooked them on the stove. So this is how I like to do it. And I'll just check on them every half an hour or so and just see how they're coming along. And when they get to the flavor and the consistency that I like, then I'll pop them out, cool them down, and stick them in some jars for the freezer. When you're adding in other vegetables and things like this, you want to make sure that you're freezing it and not canning it to put on a shelf, because it's not going to have the correct acid proportions in that. So you want to make sure that that you're making this for the freezer. Alright, so let's have a quick peek in here. I've turned the heat up to 400 to get a good boil there, or simmer, I guess. So turn the heat up to 400, and you can see it simmering along here, and I've tried to stir the garlic in just so it's not burning. Now I just want to get a little spoonful out there. It's still pretty watery, which is okay. Stewed tomatoes, but I'm going to get a little taste out there so I can see if I want to start adding any seasonings or not. It's been about an hour and a half. These are nice and sweet. Yeah, these are very sweet tomatoes. I added those orange cherry tomatoes, and they're very sweet tomato. I don't think I need to add anything else. I really like the flavor of this the way it is, and I think I'm just going to let it simmer down and take just a little bit more of the liquid out of it. But I think I'm happy with this today. Sometimes I feel like it just needs a little bit more punch, but I think I'm happy with this. I'm not even going to add any more sugar or salt. This turned out really nice, this combination of tomatoes. So I'm just going to let it cook down for, it looks like probably another hour more. I'll just let it cook for a little bit more, and then I'll cool it and get it in some containers to put in the freezer. Okay, so this has been cooking for about 2.5 to 3 hours at around 400 degrees Fahrenheit in the oven. And I'm just going to put it into some freezer containers now. I'm not sure how many I'll need, but got them washed and cleaned. These are nice containers because they give you a mark of how much room you need to leave to allow for expansion in the freezer. So I peeled these tomatoes and I put them in the pan with a little bit of peeled garlic cloves, I don't know, maybe 6, and just maybe a tablespoon and a half to 2 tablespoons of salt and a few cracks of black pepper. And then they were roasted. And I think that's just a nice basic stewed tomato. You can always add in different flavors if you want. You know, one that's more for putting in your chili, then you might want to add some jalapenos or even a little bit of chili powder. You know, just a little bit more spice, or if you want it to be more an Italian stewed tomato, you could add like some basil, oregano. You just add the flavorings the way you want it. Now, I've made mine pretty basic, and then I can put it in whatever dish I want. I like to add it to chilies and stews. Sometimes it's nice just to warm up some stewed tomatoes and serve it just over some pasta. And doing it like this, I can always add in new flavors depending on the dish I'm making. Looks like I'll have just the right amount of containers here. I wasn't sure how much I would need. So there are 5 containers of stewed tomatoes to get in the freezer. What are you doing with your tomatoes?